We are live.
What's going on? Welcome to the First Read Sports Show. My name's Aaron. I'm going to be the host. I got my buddy Parker Hurley here. It's a great time of year. NFL draft right around the corner. We got takes flying left and right. We got opinions. We got analysis. We got beat writers. We got sources, and we got none of those. We got two dudes sitting around talking about the draft, giving your analysis. So right here, I got with me Parker Hurley. What's up, Parker? How's it going?
I'm excited for the NFL draft. I'm excited to understand which sources are rumors and which rumors are true and everything like that. So let's break it down, man. What are some of the biggest topics here?
Yeah, so I got a few things going on here. I think first thing I want to run through just some big questions around the 2025 NFL draft. What some things that are going on. First one I want to throw your way down there in Pittsburgh. What's going on with Aaron Rodgers?
Isn't that a crazy question? Yeah, and I think well, here's the most fascinating thing, or the most conspiracy theory going on right now, is that the NFL draft is in Green Bay. The Packers picked 2 picks after the Steelers. So wouldn't it be so Aaron Rodgers, 2 picks before the Packers get to announce their pick in Green Bay, that he steals the spotlight of whatever he announces, whether he retires, whether he's playing for the Steelers, whether the Steelers draft a quarterback and Rodgers tweets something, or Rodgers is on Pat McAfee live as it happens, and all of a sudden the intention's on Aaron Rodgers and it's not on the Green Bay Packers making their first ever pick at Lambeau Field. He seems to be conspiring for that. But right now it seems like, I personally think that, and he said that this doesn't affect him, but he says a lot of things. He's 40-something years old. The Steelers cannot just say, we're going to sign you and not draft a quarterback. He wants to go into a situation where this team is all in to win a Super Bowl, right? He doesn't want to go into, oh yeah, draft Shedeur Sanders and I'll teach him up for a year. We'll go 9-8, and then next year I'll pass the baton. That sounds like not fun to Rodgers. Rodgers wants a receiver. He wants a lineman. He wants a defensive lineman in the first round. And so he says that doesn't matter to him, but I think he wants to wait to see, what are the Steelers going to do? Are they going to get somebody to help me, or are they going to get somebody to replace me? And then I'll decide if I want to sign for them. And the Steelers are saying, we don't have to sign you right now. If you don't want to sign right now, you don't have to sign right now. We'll see how the board falls, and then we'll decide how you feel later. And so I think it's kind of just up in the air until the NFL draft.
Yeah, I got a couple things to that. The first thing is, one, like, the personality that Shedeur is coming into the room, and like, it's not just any quarterback that would be sitting behind him. It's Shedeur or him sitting behind them. So I feel like he's like, what am I getting into? I'd rather maybe deal with JJ over in Minnesota than Shedeur and the Sanders family coming into Pittsburgh. But the other thing you said, I really thought he was going to go during the big night out in Pittsburgh and do a, hey, I'm here, I'm your new quarterback, Sidney Crosby, me, everybody. And then he didn't. So it's like, if he didn't do that and take advantage of that spectacle, you think he's going to try and trump the Packers
only because of who he is, and because in Pittsburgh it's uplifting Pittsburgh, but in Green Bay it's tearing down Green Bay, and I think he'd rather tear down Green Bay than lift up Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
that just seems like that's, and he seems spiteful of Green Bay, and he went on Pat McAfee and went out of his way to diss Aaron Glenn and the Jets. When
that was interesting. 20 seconds in the room.
He's just a very interesting person. But then everyone says, well, if they did it over the phone, he would have went on Pat McAfee and says, these guys fired me over the phones, these jerks,
What's the percentage you think he actually paid for his own flight there and the Jets didn't pay? Because he said he paid.
Yeah, probably he paid not. Yeah. Which hey, it seemed like, a lot of his story is true. And I think Aaron Glenn, I think it makes sense for him to come in there and establish himself as, an authoritarian figure. Whether this works or not, I'm not going to say that, but I think it makes sense for somebody to do that. But yeah, it also makes sense for Rodgers to, like I said, to, be on his high horse, to be looking for the attention, to be looking for the spotlight, to be, looking, like I said, to throw it at Green Bay. So
throw it out long as possible, be the headline as long as possible.
That seems to be where, and even I think Devontae Adams just said something along the lines of, he wants somebody to roll out the red carpet for him. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are saying, here is a low-end contract that we offered Russell Wilson the same money, and we're not going to tell you whether we're going to draft a quarterback or not. And Rodgers is like, well, that's not a red carpet. So they're just stuck in that is where I think they are.
Do you think, what's the level of priorities in Pittsburgh right now? Is let's see what Rodgers does and then draft quarterback, or let's draft quarterback, and if Rodgers wants to sign?
I think that's the idea, right? Especially right now that it's taken so long. Maybe if Rodgers shows up the first day of free agency, says, I'm in love with this. I love that. Oh, you signed DK. He's so cool. I'm in. And he's been signed for 2 months. Then you spend 2 months not looking at quarterbacks or something along those lines. But like I said, I think in that first meeting, they sat down and said, hey, sorry to tell you, but if the board breaks this way, then we're going to have to draft somebody. And that's completely been their standpoint so far. And it makes a lot of sense. And what I keep saying is, Omar Khan came up as the cap guy. He's, less of a scout for 20 years. He was the Steelers cap guy. He got them through, a lot of tough times. And he sees it as, this quarterback on this cheap contract is worth so much more than, exposition at contract exposition. And then you look at who is he drafted, and this is his third year drafting players. He drafted 2 tackles, which are, 2 of the most valuable in terms of when they hit free agency, they make big money. So you have to draft them early so you get them on that cheap rookie contract. And quarterback, it's quarterback, pass rusher, tackle are basically the only positions you really get a lot of, of that salary cap bump. So I could see them saying, hey, if the right quarterback falls to us, and Omar Khan just said today, we happen to like a couple of quarterbacks in this draft, didn't say what round or whatever, but if the right quarterback falls to us at the right time, we're going to draft one. And then, if it doesn't, then that's awesome for them that they have Aaron Rodgers in the back burners or whatever. But if it does, and then they could still sign Aaron Rodgers. So that's where I think they're sitting as is let's just let the board fall to us, because potentially any quarterback can besides Cam Ward, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been a fan and in the camp that Milroe Steelers fit, but also that the Steelers like Milroe too. So it's more than just like a one-way relationship there. So I'm interested to see what happens with that. The interesting thing outside of the whole Shedeur being on Rodgers' shoulder or whatever you want to call it is the personality there. Pittsburgh, I'm trying to think, Big Ben wasn't a huge personality coming out of Miami, Ohio. Mason Rudolph, not a big personality. Oklahoma State. Josh Jobs, not big. So who was the last person that they brought in to, like, is that an issue? Do you see that being anything to hold them back from doing it? Or do you think Mike Tomlin wants to zig now since he zagged the whole time?
I guess the thing with Ben was, he definitely he wasn't a personality. And for like a little bit, he became a personality. And then, you kind of touch the sky or whatever. You kind of hit your peak of, hit back down to earth with some, sexual assault charges or whatever. And then he kind of
too close to the sun or whatever.
Yeah. Then he became more of, kind of realized that, okay, I need to, relax the way that I'm acting. So I think they've dealt with that. And I mean, then you look at the Steelers with, Antonio Brown, and you look at them with George Pickens and things like that. So it is a different position, but it's still the same idea. And I think it comes down to, does Mike Tomlin think this guy can play? And, is it a guy like Jalen Milroe who, like I just said, Khan is the cap guy. Justin Fields is making $15 million per year. Jalen Milroe would come in, even if you draft him at 21, he's making like $3 million per year. So, and you get $12 million of excess of, now we get a $12 million receiver, and now we get a $12 million, or we get 2 $6 million linebackers in for that price. So we get that plus Jalen Milroe. And then when you think about it do we get a good wide receiver in Jalen Milroe or Justin Fields? It starts to become that easy math equation of, that's a lot more obvious in my opinion than, well, who do you think's better, Jalen Milroe or Justin Fields? Well, that's not the question. The question is this excess value that you have from the rookie quarterback. So it kind of is pick your poison. And then it is, even if Jackson Dart is there, it's a different style, different fit. But all of them could be adaptable, and all of them kind of, the Steelers need a quarterback. So it makes plenty of sense that whether the personality or not, Mike Tomlin seems to say, if you've, and that's why I keep saying it's so important that they've brought in Shedeur. They went to Jalen Milroe's pre-draft workout. They went to Quinn Ewers and Will Howard, and they went to any quarterback you name, Tyler Shuck. So it'll be interesting to see which of them they pick, but they're obviously sorting out which personality they think fits best for them.
Yeah, we kind of like to do those blind player comparisons and stuff. And if you strip the player themselves of their accolades or of their resumes, and you put Milroe and Shedeur just up against the Steelers, I would say, okay, Milroe's profile fits Arthur Smith's offense. The way he plays is more of like what they're used to with Fields. Yeah, Shedeur is good. Shedeur can play a different, they'll have to tailor offense to him, but like Shedeur doesn't have the athleticism that even like Ryan Tannehill had. So it's like, does he fit the Arthur Smith offense, or do they have to reinvent it for Shedeur?
I think there's a question of the offense that you've seen Arthur Smith run based on what he's had versus what does Arthur Smith want and actually get, because in Tennessee, first off, he's the offensive coordinator. So it's, you just kind of get, thrown whatever's there. And yeah, it's Ryan Tannehill is there. Atlanta, you get Mariota because he's your bridge. Then you draft Desmond Ridder. It doesn't go well. You kind of, you're kind of just like squirming for a couple years, kind of just making it work. And now you come to Pittsburgh where, it's the two cheapest quarterbacks, Russell and Fields, I guess, so yeah, you look at it and you say, well, Mariota and Fields and Jalen Milroe would fit that trajectory. Or you look at it and say, this is his first time to actually have some input and say, I was just stuck with that and made do of what I could. And now here's what I actually want to do with my offense. Let's make this happen. So it's definitely up in the air, and it's definitely, a potential of who do you think, you could get in terms of, if you're looking at it, just X amount of years ago, Kenny Pickett versus Malik Willis, you would say, well, Shador's closer to Kenny Pickett, Jalen's closer to Malik Willis, and you saw who they preferred there. Obviously, they're different human beings altogether. It's about personality and things like that. So, but yeah, I don't think you can just narrow it down to a typical style just based on what Arthur Smith has done, because I don't know if he's gotten the chance. Now, if they drafted Jalen Milroe at 21, you would say, well, now we know that he leans heavy on mobility. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, let's segue a little bit more into the draft stuff. And if you had to guess today, where do you think Shador's landing spots are, or potential spots? Maybe not one specific.
Right. I mean, it starts, and everyone keeps going back and forth with that New York Giants at 3, and everyone seems to know that Travis Hunter's obviously going number 2, and we obviously have Cam Ward going number 1, and then it's like, I'd say it's like 90% Abdul Carter at 3 to the Giants, but then I think that 10%, it should be, and then there's that 10% I think just lingering of I think that's where you say this is the first Shador Sanders spot is right there at 3, and then you kind of jump back down the draft to 9. Everyone says, well, the Saints aren't going to take him at 9, and then from 9 you start to list out the teams from 9 to 21. And there just aren't, quarterback needy teams. Just bringing up the draft order real quick. You got, so 9 goes by and they don't take him. Caleb Williams is 10. Brock Purdy's 11. Dak Prescott's 12. Tua's 13. I mean, I don't think you could do that. Indianapolis just signed Daniel Jones to give Anthony Richardson one more year. Atlanta has their quarterback in Penix, as Arizona has
Laurel.
Yeah. We got Joe Burrow. We've got Sam Darnold just signed a big deal. Maybe they draft a quarterback, but they just gave Sam Darnold a ton of money. Baker Mayfield signed for money. Bo Nix just had a rookie season, and then it gets to Pittsburgh. So, I mean, it easily goes from 9 to 21, like pretty easily. So you can get down to that, or you can say, does Cleveland go back up? Does the Giants go back up? Do they even care and just say, let's have Pittsburgh at 21, they can be that team that takes him. Because then from there,
33, 34, whatever it is. So it's like, let's just see who slips out of the first round and take what crumbs fall to us or whatever.
Because if Shador doesn't go until 21, I mean, then you start thinking, like how many quarterbacks between, it's Milroe, it's Dart, it's Shuck. It's kind of those 3 are probably the next 3.
I got one for you. After Pittsburgh, I have an intriguing thought. The Rams.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
Did you say the Rams too just now?
Oh, yeah, I was just looking at it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think they're maybe not Shador. I kind of think McVay has a Milroe crush.
That would be, the Milroe attending the draft is like
that,
it's
at
least an interesting conversation because, like why is he attending there? And then the interesting thought is, at least, I think Todd McShay said it, that, Jackson Dart accepted an invitation and then decided not to go to the draft. So it's like, what kind of wins is he hearing versus, Jalen Milroe is still going to the draft versus, Malik Willis went to the draft. So, I mean, it's not like it's, set in stone that, he went to the draft. He's first round, but it's
Levis most recently was the one.
Yeah, Levis too. And I mean, he went early second, so it was close, but still, I think but then it is from 21, you get down to the Rams are probably the next team. And I mean, I think Detroit is a sleeper team, but I think that's like later. I think that's like if Milroe falls like later in the draft, because I think at some point you look at that last playoff game and you say, like, what's the ceiling with Jared Goff? If everything goes perfectly, Jared Goff is the man. The second things go wrong, we lose to a playmaker quarterback because we don't have a playmaker quarterback. That's what Detroit has to be thinking at some point. So I don't think they're going to take one at, 28, but I think at least at least worth thinking about at some point. But yeah, probably not a Shador team, but maybe a Milroe team later.
I think it would be wise of the Rams to start at least making people feel nervous about them so that they do move up 5th-year option in the first round. Hey, come get our pick, give us 33 or something like that. I don't know. I'm just curious about the Rams. They could take a quarterback. They could move back. So, okay, that's enough about Shador. Let's move on to some other stuff. Okay, Ashton Jeanty. Is it Jeanty? I am hearing a lot of McShay saying to the Jags. I don't see that. I think with Tank Bigsby and who's the other guy, the Clemson guy?
Etienne.
Yeah, I think they got some running backs there. Liam Cohn should try those out for a year. Then you got the Raiders, whose GM says his wife's going to leave him if he doesn't draft Jeanty, which is heck of a soundbite. But I don't know. I think he's going to kind of maybe fall a little bit past there, work on a mock draft right now, have him go to the Bears. What are your thoughts?
I mean, when you start to break it down, it is, they're definitely one of the few candidates there, like you said. I don't think he goes top 5. And then it makes sense at 6 when you start to look at, some of the positions, but then, there's a lot of positions the Raiders could hit at 6. They could go tackle, they could go defensive line, they could go, Mason Graham on the interior. They could go a lot of different directions.
Jalen Walker.
Yeah, right. I do think Jeanty is a fit at 6, and I could definitely see them, especially in this particular draft. You look around and it is, Will Campbell is potentially a top guy, but he doesn't have the arm length. He's typically, a guy that, slides a little bit because he's probably going to be a guard. Armand Membu, he's a right tackle who's super athletic, but, he's got a little bit of size concerns. And, but like I said, he's a right tackle, potentially switching to left. Mason Graham's he looks pretty undersized, and he has questionable athletic traits. So you start to talk about these guys. Jalen Walker is a linebacker who's going to have to move to edge rusher. You start to look at these guys and you say, at some point you just say, it's these guys with all these questions who have upside, or it's the obvious running back, like the guy who's obviously going to be good. So I think that,
which is the toughest position to pill to swallow first round running back.
Right. Because the reality is, if Membu hits and becomes, this all pro right tackle, even if Jeanty becomes an all pro right tackle, it's a terrible pick if Membu becomes that all pro right tackle, because the value you get of an all pro right tackle is just so much above that. So it's still, even if Mason Graham hits, that you just saw the Raiders themselves just paid Christian Wilkins a ton of money, and he's above average at defensive tackle, but you don't say, when you name the top 5 defensive tackles, you don't immediately say Christian Wilkins, and he just made superb money by the Raiders. So the Raiders could be looking at it saying, let's pair Mason Graham with him, and now we have something really going for us, and we have him on the cheap while we have Wilkins on the expensive. So if those hit so much harder than Jeanty, but Jeanty is like the obvious, he's going to hit, he's not an undersized guy. He doesn't have questions of position. He doesn't have questions of size. So it's things like that.
Who do you think, or where do you see him kind of falling into?
I do tend to think that the Bears at 10 seems to be like the breaking point, because
get your Jahmyr Gibbs, and DeAndre Swift could be a somewhat compliment.
Right. And for them, it's the same questions of, do they draft Will Campbell, and, you draft a guard at 10th, because you're probably not going to play him at tackle, but then you just sign Joe Thuney, and Will Campbell kind of his best comparison, a best outcome for him would be Joe Thuney. You just signed Joe Thuney.
It sounds like Campbell's pretty locked in at 4. Multiple people are saying draft starts at 5.
Right. So, I mean, but then, it's like, who else has fallen to you, and then it comes down to, if you're doing edge rushers, I just posted an article to plug our website, firstread.com, talking about how all the edge rushers are good, but all of them have flaws to where, who do you take at 10? Do you take Shamar Stewart with his lack of production? Do you take Mykel Williams coming off an injury with lack of production and questionable athleticism? Do you take James Pierce, who's just a pass rusher? Do you take, Mike Green, who has, questionable off field and he has short arms? These aren't guys that you typically take in the top 10. So, I mean, it seems obvious that I think, 6 with what's it called, the
Raiders,
and then it seems like 10 to the Bears. That seems to be the furthest he'll fall at this point.
Yeah, I agree. What else we got here? Okay, move on a little bit from Ashton Jeanty. Wide receivers, first round. We were kind of talking about Jags teasing Jeanty at 5. It sounds like playmaker may be there at 5. Tetaroa McMillan, is that how you? Again, my best attempt, but yeah. What do you think about Ted at 5, and what are your thoughts on this year's receivers? There's only I think 2 expected in the first round, if that. So
I think when you look at the Jaguars depth chart and roster, here, I just pulled it up. Okay. You have Brian Thomas Jr., who's, ascending to be a number 1. They gave Diami Brown a lot of money, but I mean, it's Diami Brown. And then it's Parker Washington. That's your receiver group kind of. And then they do have Gabe Davis, but it's still like, I think you need. Go ahead.
Was Diami Brown a 2 in Washington? Or was he a 3?
Really. Not even really. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
like at times he was like an outside player, but he was less of like their second receiving option is like, I guess how you would put it. Yeah.
Gabe Davis is the 2, I guess, at Jacksonville.
It's really because Parker Washington is more of a slot. They're kind of signed Gabe Davis and Diami Brown, and both of them will compete for that other spot. But I'm thinking that's a spot that, if you can get a big name to upgrade over that, or even, Brenton Strange had a good rookie season, but I mean, who did Brenton Strange play at Penn State with? Is Tyler Warren. So, I mean, those two could obviously combine together, and, Liam Cohen could do a lot of different creative offensive things with Tyler Warren. I think that's what makes him like valuable in terms of his value. So I think either way, when you look at the Jaguars depth chart and you think of Liam Cohen, an offensive dude, you're thinking they're probably going to go offensive pass catcher at that point. So you think that's the case. And then it probably gets down to like 12 with Dallas might take a pass catcher.
Yeah. So, say Jags don't take a receiver. Dallas comes up. Matthew Golden would be my pick, Texas guy, but say they go Tet. Does Matthew Golden go in the first round? Is there one receiver? I mean, you got the Bills towards the end. You got the Commanders. No, yeah, the Commanders kind of they could definitely do something with receiver.
They could.
Packers, maybe. What do you think?
I think, the Packers would be a good one. And I think a sneaky one, especially for Matthew Golden, is the LA Chargers. I just think that would be a really good fit with
Josh Palmer.
Yeah, and his speed combined with Herbert's, ability to really not overthrow anybody. It seems like, you can just kind of wing it out there. So I think that could be a good fit, obviously, depending on how the board breaks. But I mean, yeah, you kind of look at it and it's tough to find like a specific spot for some of these receivers. So like you said, I could see Buffalo falling. One thing I want to say is I think Travion Henderson to Washington would be a really good fit, like replacing Austin Eckler in that role, like being that pass catching, like chess piece in that offense. I could really see them going that way. But yeah, either way, I think the Green Bay Packers is another good call out that they could go receiver. But then it is, and then the Houston Texans, and another one that I compare Emeka Egbuka to Robert Woods, and I think him in that offense could do basically the same things he was doing in that offense previously. So I think that would make a lot of sense, and they need to consistently add some receivers, but they obviously need a tackle too. So it could break either way, but that's a team that I would look out for receiver.
Let's stay with receivers here. And I recently did an article on firstread.com about the wide receivers in the draft, some guys I like and some comps, and everybody loves to tear apart a good draft comp. So I'm going to tell you who I comped, and you tell me you like it, what you don't like about it. How's that sound?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, so my number 1 receiver in the draft, Matthew Golden out of Texas. I may be biased. I'm a Longhorn fan, but I do think just his pure skill set and the things he can do compared to Tet makes him the number 1 in my opinion. I love the way that he made Quinn Ewers look a lot better than Quinn was. He adjusts. He can clean up all the sloppy throws. He just has really good body control and makes a bad throw look good. And the way he can kind of be a safety blanket. I mean, Tet can. I don't know why I have the hate, but I just like Matthew Golden number 1. And the way that he cleans up like that, plus with his speed, I have Terry McLaurin. I went back and looked. Terry McLaurin ran a 4.3 40. So he's a lot faster than like I even was giving him credit for. He runs crisp routes. He's the take the slant and go type of guy, but he also can do the deep adjust and go over the DBs. So what do you think about that comp?
Yeah, it's a good one, especially in terms of, like you said, they both have the, great straight line speed and the ability to make catches like over their shoulder with ball tracking ability and things like that. So makes a lot of sense to me. I guess Terry McLaurin probably a little bit better with the ball in his hands, but I think that's like something like if he gets thicker in the NFL, like puts on more of that like mass along those lines. I think it could be a good one. Some of the ones that I heard Chris Olave is a good comparison for him. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I went with Santonio Holmes as mine because
I like that.
Yeah, and the word that like everyone says about Matthew Golden is sudden. Like he's real sudden. His movement is sudden. And I think whenever you watch Santonio Holmes, like the biggest takeaway I got was like real sudden. And then just some downside comparisons, I guess, in that realm is like I compared him to both of the Moores, Elijah Moore and Sky Moore, because it's like it's a similar body type comparison in my opinion, but I think he's a little bit bigger than both of them and a little bit faster than both of them. So I think that kind of goes in his favor and leans him towards some of them with more favorable comparisons, but just some names to throw out there.
Yeah, when I was first just looking at some of the raw just combine numbers and stuff like that, my first thought was Jalen Waddle. I was like, kind of a Jalen Waddle skill set. But then I turned on the Alabama tape and I was like, damn, Jalen Waddle burned past guys. There was multiple plays where he had 2-3 steps and walk in the end zone, and Golden didn't really have that. One, Quinn Ewers probably could have been part of it, not reading the play, diagnosing it well enough, throwing an underthrown ball. So there could be other player factors in there, but Waddle was the other guy that came to mind for me with Matthew Golden.
Yeah, and I think that the difference is probably like quicker than fast. Like I said, like it's like sudden versus like, yeah, it's like he's like 0 to 60, whereas he's like 0 to 20, 0 to 20, like kind of just like, it's like I said, like so quick out of his breaks. It's really, but I mean, I didn't think he was going to run as fast as he did. Then he did. So like you said, I think some of it could be that he was being held back in that offense.
Okay, next is my number 2 receiver in the draft, Luther Burden III out of Missouri. I'm curious what you think of this one. So I really like the way. So first of all, I want to address the whole Deebo Samuel comparison. I get it. He did some of the end arounds and ran out of the backfield a little bit, but I think you can't really give him the wide back qualification as far as he doesn't play like a running back when he has the ball in his hands. He plays like a receiver running with the ball in his hands, where Deebo plays like a running back. And he also doesn't run seeking contact. He'll put his shoulder down for sure, but Deebo would almost – the Eagle game is the first one that comes to mind. Like, he'll look through a guy and run through his face. So I don't think Luther Burden's a wide back per se, but he has that skill set where he can easily play that role. Outside of that, he has great hands. I like the way that he can, whenever he's going up for a ball, he knows where the DB's at, and he kind of can position himself and has a good feel for where the DB's at and how he needs to go up for the ball. And the way that he can kind of just be that stud utility guy, but switch to stud receiver, I can comp him to DJ Moore.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense, especially like you said, in terms of how he's probably going to be used. The thing with me is that I like DJ Moore so much coming out of the draft. I just don't like Burden as much. I think I don't want to say like it's lazy as much as it's like less crispness in his routes, in my opinion. But I would, like I said, it's my opinion of Moore was
their senior seasons too. DJ senior season was just ridiculous, and Burden's was kind of
had a down year. But they both had bad quarterback play, and that's why I think like. The difference to me was that like Moore still like fought for every snap despite his bad quarterback, whereas Burden kind of gave up on some of those routes despite it. And that's where I think some of it is why like some of the mock drafts in that have him falling. And that's why I did come up with like, that's like his high end comparison for me, but the like middle end comparison for me is more like Christian Kirk, because I think like just like I said, if you can't necessarily get the route running as well as I think you can, just stick him in the slot, have him run the go routes, use his athleticism and the ball tracking to his best ability. I
don't know. I saw a lot of Christian Kirk. Is it Christian Kirk? I saw a lot of that as well. I didn't know if it was just because he has a lot of the same gear and the sleeves and stuff. And I was like, okay.
No, especially the thing with me is if you watch Kirk in college, they used him the same way in college. I think it was Texas A&M. They used him a lot at Texas A&M in the same way that they were using Luther Burden. And in the same manner that a lot of like the analytics community really likes his stat profile. Like Luther Burden had a really high stat profile, but a lot of it was, easy screens and things like that and drags and, things after the catch. Whereas that's what Christian Kirk was doing a lot of. And that's why he fell into the second round. And I think you may see Burden fall into the second round.
Yeah, I would say it's less of a Deebo Samuel role, more of like the Percy Harvin role that he played.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So then my third receiver in the draft, who I don't want to act like I'm hating, but is Ted McMillan. And I think he's just your prototypical big body receiver, has a knack for the jump ball, but it's like when you ask him to do a little bit more than that, when you try to have him run a little bit more of a cut route towards the sideline and out route, it's more of a rounded curve towards the sideline. And those get undercut by the D-backs. So it's I don't know. I think he has more flaws, but the skill set, the height, the speed, the hands, it's all there. So I see what people are seeing. He could clearly go at 5, but I don't know. I comped him to Drake London. I think there's definitely some work that needs to be done. He is good whenever he's a volume receiver. He gets a few throws thrown his way. But what do you think?
I think that's definitely, the high end upside, or like the best case outcome for him is what you would expect for him to become as a player like Drake London. Like I think the difference is that I think Tet's a little bit better, like breaking tackles with the ball in his hand and like just being like a more physical presence, whereas London almost like plays like a small receiver, which how fluid he is in and out of his breaks. Like he can really do like strong releases, whereas I think Ted has to improve at that. So I mean, I think it's a really good, like I think if he goes top 10, then it's obvious that like teams in the NFL are saying, well, Drake London went 8 overall. Like why wouldn't we take like the same thing at 10 overall? I think my comparison was more like T. Higgins, like more like above the rim than, like I said, whereas Drake London's more of that like shiftier type of thing, whereas T. Higgins kind of like goes up and gets it. I think that's like more of like in like, and even like a Michael Pittman type of player is like kind of how I saw him. But yeah, it's still the same idea that like and that's the thing, is that I think Drake London is like, especially in that offense, is like a primary asset, whereas like T. Higgins or Michael Pittman, I think is more like best off in a secondary. And that's what I think you were kind of even saying with your like opinion of Tet, is that like a really good receiver as that secondary guy sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you don't ask him to do too much, but ask him to do what he's good at, and he'll succeed and excel at it.
Right. Which is why he would fit in Dallas. I agree with you that I think like Golden is a better fit with CeeDee Lamb, but I mean, if you want to have two big receivers like that, you definitely could, because I mean, one, CeeDee Lamb's so versatile, and then two, I think, Tet can do so many of the complementary things like you said.
So my argument there, since you brought it up, was they're not the same player, they're different, but they tried to complement CD with a bigger body Michael Gallup, and it wasn't like the best results. They tried that. They tried Brandon Cooks. They tried Tolbert or whoever, not Tolbert. Yeah. Is it Tolbert? Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a Dak Prescott problem, but I just think, is Tet the solution to that, the pass offense there? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know either. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I think Golden, what he would do is, I mean, I think you would stick him in that Brandon Cooks role, and it would probably just be an upgrade and he would just improve the spacing in that offense so much, and he would use his speed. So I mean, I agree that I think it's like a better fit, but I could understand if Dallas just said, fit be darned, we think that Tet is a better player. Like I could understand if that's what they thought.
I bet you they're praying Ashton Jeanty falls to them at 12 too, so they can work on that run game. But that's
a story for another day. We're to the point where people are talking about if they're going to take Hampton more than Jeanty, because people think Jeanty will be gone by then.
Hey, I live in Austin. I am even seeing them potentially trade up to 2 for Travis Hunter. So
yeah, I forget. I think it's Daniel Jeremiah keeps talking about that.
Is it really? I didn't see that. So there's rumors of this happening.
He just keeps saying that like it's something he would want to do. Something, I forget what he said. He's always like, if you're Dallas and you had Deion Sanders on your team and you want to go swing for the fences, you might as well go get Travis Hunter. Something along those lines. I forget where he said it. Yeah.
Okay, I will say, if you think about Travis Hunter not wasting away but going to Cleveland, or Dallas making the move and going up and getting him, it's like I'd rather see Dallas add Travis Hunter than. But
the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, great. What's he going to do on the Browns? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The next one, I think you might be a little higher on this guy than me. Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. He is just a model of consistency. I mean, he wowed me, but it wasn't always like the most impressive, like flash, jump off the page type of stuff. But I think that he's always in the right place, good hands, breaks tackles when he has to. If paired with a good quarterback, he could be a go-to receiver, or just like he played a lot in the slot, so a plus starter in the slot. I liked him as Rashee Rice is my comp.
Yeah, and I've heard other people say that too, and it makes a lot of sense that you could just kind of stick him in there. And I mean, he does the dirty work that you want a guy like Rashee Rice to do, and that's why I mean it's a very similar idea. It's just, I guess, like a different, like outcome or whatever. But I said, like I said in the one, was Robert Woods. I think he's right. So similar to Robert Woods. He runs the same routes, has that like tenacity in the run blocking game that, that's why the Rams got like the best out of him, because they were able to use him in that way. And I mean, yeah, Robert Woods, I think he's still in the NFL. This is like, he's going on like 10 years or whatever. Like, I think like that's where Emeka Egbuka is. Like, you're going to look back from 10 years and be like, yeah, like that's just exactly who that dude is. And I mean, that's like, I think to like recap that like top group, like, I went T. Higgins for Tet. I went Robert Woods for Egbuka. I went Christian Kirk for what's his name? It's like a lot of secondary complementary receivers, So it's like you're like I like a lot of these guys, but I like a lot of them as like secondary options more than like oh, he's going to be a top guy sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a way Igbokwe fails. I just think, is his upside higher than like a Robert Woods type of guy.
And I think that's part of the reason why I like the Rashee Rice comp too, because a lot of the places Rashee would probably be a number 2 receiver,
right.
But he's playing for Patrick Mahomes. I don't know. I don't think Worthy might be the best receiver on the team.
In the right offense, he could become a real lethal weapon.
Yeah, just a go-to volume guy. So okay, yeah, let's go to the next one. The next one I might be a little too high on. Not hate, but don't like the name so much because the guy with the name in the past broke my heart as a 49ers fan. But his name's Kyle Williams, wide receiver out of Washington State. For those who don't know, we had a wide receiver, Kyle Williams, on the 49ers. There was a couple punts by the Giants he muffed. Long story short, didn't go to the Super Bowl, but this is a different guy. I like this guy. I think he is just a little like electric ball of just I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I really think people need to respect his speed. I think he's shifty. I think he can do the whole entire route tree. My comp is Tyler Lockett because there was multiple times where he would get behind the guy and do the acrobatic, get in the back of the and I just saw some Tyler Lockett. And what do you think?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I just keep trying to I guess ease myself on how high I can be on Williams because he does have a lot of good traits, but I mean the things that he has a trap floor door of he's an older prospect, he's been around for a while, and his hands are questionable to me. So I think
the competition too. What I can get behind.
It just took him a while to get going and everything like that. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I ended up going with a mix of Jaden Reed and Sky Moore. I said Sky Moore because I really like Sky Moore's tape. I was really excited when he went in the second round. But for all of the reasons I could see Kyle Williams failing, I could see Sky Moore failed in almost all the same exact reasons. Is why I'm almost afraid of how high do you want to put up a guy like Kyle Williams. So that's it's a reminder for me. That's why I'll do these comps for myself, but it's a reminder for me to be okay, remember why you don't like him as much as you should or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I always got to reel myself in. It's okay, you got to find a more down to earth a comp. For me, it was the impressive catches, the circus things that did happen were impressive, but there was some consistency issues with him. The Travis Hunter tape's hard to get past when you see him. He kind of cooked Travis Hunter a couple times, so it's all right, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, when you see the upside, it's you stick with the upside that you like. Yeah.
Yeah, then in the last one I'm going to go with, and again, just because it was a buzz guy around Niners fans, he was at the local pro day and was seen chatting up with John Lynch and stuff. It's Alec Io-Minor from Stanford, former hockey player, kind of like your guy Chase Claypool, former current Canadian. My thoughts on Alec Io-Minor, I like that he is a blocker as a Niners fan. He likes to play when the ball isn't in his hands. He seeks to help in the run game. I didn't see a lot about him as to why he was getting open. It seemed like he almost just had a knack for getting open. He wasn't the fastest guy. He didn't run the best routes. It wasn't the craziest thing, but he had a knack for getting open, which gave me shades of Keenan Allen because Keenan Allen's not the fastest guy, but he always has a way of getting open. And then I think that, he's got some good hands, similar to Kyle Williams. There's the explosive plays, the nice ones, but there's some consistency issues. I think he's a good wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, helps in the run game. I comped him to Adam Thielen.
And it's funny because you always say not to comp the helmet or whatever. And but a few years ago, JJ Arcega-Whiteside from Stanford.
Oh.
Yeah, I compared him to Adam Thielen almost in this, I said the same exact things you did, that he's not the fastest, doesn't run the shifters routes, he does this, that, and the other, just and now I was watching him and saying the same along the same, and I kept saying, I was am I getting stuck on this JGR? So it is, he's one of the players I'm most interested to see how he shapes up in the NFL, because it's like I said, it's is he just I said with Arcega, I was he's got that old man game and that box out style that he can, he doesn't create separation, but he can go get it. And then it's no, in the NFL, he's too slow and he can't even be a tight end. It's it hits life hits you fast in the NFL.
Yeah, there's plays where he's struggling to just do a across the middle and catch a ball like that, but then he'll break a guy for 15 yards, go up with one hand, bring the ball down over top of him, just acrobatic circus catches, and it's okay, Where is it here? Do you have good hands, or do you struggle to catch the easy balls? Like,
Yeah,
what is
which is where when I broke it down and everything, my comp ended up being Romeo Dubs on like a physical athletic profile and things like that. So yeah, just as like, a bigger body who like Romeo Dubs makes all these, acrobatic catches, then he drops all these stupid ones or goes quiet for, games at a time and things like that. So
were those two Packers, or Sega Whiteside and Dubs?
Arcega Whiteside was Philly, right?
Oh,
they took Arcega Whiteside over DK Metcalf. And that's the thing is everyone praises the Eagles, but they took Rager over Justin Jefferson and Arcega Whiteside over DK Metcalf. It happens to the best of them.
Then you hit Kenyon Mitchell and
and I mean you trade for you trade the Bears for Jordan Davis and you trade the Saints to get not Devontae Adams. I forget who they got the Saints for. But either way, and they got AJ Brown from the Titans. Yeah, I mean if you offset those with those, then you could draft Jalen Rager over Justin Jefferson.
Well, that was the last wide receiver comp I had, but I do have my rough mock draft up. Do you want to kind of go through some picks? Is there something else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I guess just do a couple quick picks and then just wrap it up.
Okay. So we already talked about how the kind of first four are set in place: Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Will Campbell, assuming the Giants don't surprise people and go Shador. After that, we said probably some skill player at Jacksonville. Raiders probably going to go defense. I have Jalen Walker going to the Raiders.
Or obviously a Genty possibility, yeah.
Yeah, could be a Genty. Wait, sorry, I missed that. You think Genty there with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen?
No, possible at six to the Raiders.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah. And then I have the Jets, Mason Graham. If he falls there, it's hard for them them to pass that up. I'm Aaron Glenn, defensive guy. Add a defensive player, kind of like we were talking about Liam Cohen. Carolina Panthers wanted Jalen Walker. I have them going Michael Williams. Try to get it. They need the edge rusher, Georgia edge rusher.
I think they're going to get one of those two, yeah.
Yeah. New Orleans was interesting for me because it was really hard to pick, but then I saw McShay said they're basically between edge or tackle. And they want to find a replacement for Cam Jordan. So I went Shamar Stewart there, DN, Texas A&M. Then 10, Chicago Bears, Ashton Genty, like we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Then we get to number 11, 49ers, and I was torn because Membu fell. So it was like, do I go Membu? But I'm also hearing that they're either going to go Shamar Stewart or Walter Nolan. So Shamar's not there. Can't go him. Right. I'm between Nolan and Membu. There's some DTs that they could get in the second round. So I think Niners would go Membu there and try and get the potential.
I think if Michael Williams is there for the 49ers, though, that's a good one for them.
Yes. Any of the Georgia guys, if either Georgia guy is there, they will run the podium and submit that. 12, Cowboys. We talked about Matthew Golden. 13, Dolphins seem like they're pretty much writing in Calvin Banks already. What do you agree with that?
For Miami?
Yeah.
I mean, considering what's his name just retired, it seems like it's him or, potentially even Barron. So it's like, which Texas guy are they going to go with?
Yeah, that would be the other. I mean, I even heard Aaron Glenn may consider Jahdae Barron at 7 for the Jets. So that would be interesting.
He seems like the most surprised top 10 player potential.
Yeah, there's going to be one. There's going to be something that shakes this whole thing up.
Yeah.
So then Colts 14, I got Tyler Warren, tight end, Penn State. Atlanta Falcons, Mike Green, edge. For some reason, I'm seeing his name tied to them a lot. Cardinals, they sit still and get Will Johnson at 16. 17, I got Bengals, Walter Nolan. They seem to be really in on Walter Nolan or Mike Green. So Seattle was a tough one for me. I went Derek Harmon. What do you think?
I think that they're going to go with one of these offensive linemen. I think that Kelvin Banks is his floor. And at first I wouldn't consider it, but then like you said, a lot of people are projecting him as a guard. So I think what's that?
Who? Banks.
Yeah. They're projecting Banks as a guard. So they have, Charles Cross at left tackle. And if they just put Kelvin Banks in there next to him, I think that's a huge upgrade. And I think their biggest issue last year was their offensive line. So I even think that this is a surprise potential pick. Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. I think he's a really potential option here. Considering, I think the the Seahawks' biggest need is interior offensive line, but I also think that Donovan Jackson's an interesting guy because he was a really, really high quality left guard. And I think if he played his whole year at left guard, maybe we'd be talking about him like this wasn't a surprise.
Yeah.
But they had to shift him to left tackle because the other kid, Josh Simmons, got hurt. And, you're shifting a guard out to tackle. It's a real tough ask for him. He held himself up, admirably. He played against Abdul Carter as a left tackle. I'm talking about a left guard playing, Abdullah. So I think he did well, in my opinion. So I think teams are going to be higher on him because they see that versatility and they see that this is a potential real high quality left guard. And not only that, but he can actually, if he needs to, he can actually slide out there for a little bit. So I think he's a sleeper.
Now that's interesting because I even had Tyler Booker over him, so I'm going to have to go and check that out. But the other one that I had for Seattle, I let it slip a little bit earlier, but was Gray Zabel. I thought they could potentially go Zabel there. I know you like him as a center, but I think he could be a good fit for that team.
It's just beefing up the trenches and knowing that the interior is probably, which I mean, do you take an interior offensive lineman at 18? In this draft where, 2 tight ends are gone already, a running back's gone already, are we talking about positional value the same as this draft as other drafts? Not really. So, take the best interior offensive lineman you can and, make your life easier.
Yeah. Well, I went Derek Harmon. I saw Jaron Reed, Leonard Williams, they're kind of older edges, but then they need some help in the middle. So I had a Derek Harmon for them there. Next, 19, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kind of seems chalk, but I went Jahad Campbell. They need linebacker help. 20, Denver Broncos. I had Omari and Hampton here for the longest time, but I'm hearing that there's a big bromance between Sean Payton and Colson Loveland. So I went Colson Loveland at 20 to the Broncos. 21, didn't know what to do. I heard something earlier that Steelers were not considering quarterback at all until they met Shedeur. So I was going to go D-tackle here, maybe Tyleik Williams, but I ended up going Shedeur Sanders at 21 with the Steelers. Thought any of that so far?
I think if Harmon is off the board, then if Harmon's off the board and Shedeur is on the board, it's hard to see them, or whether it be even Jackson Dart is, I don't know if they prefer, one over the other, but I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I think the other one, if Jahad Campbell, I think Ezra Raku makes a lot of sense because it's almost like Campbell is a linebacker who can do blitzing things, whereas Ezra is a blitzer who can do linebacker things. So it's kind of like, I think it's like pick your poison there. If Jahad Campbell falls or if he goes earlier, or if I think he has like a medical question. So just to say that, yeah.
Yeah. Then at 22, so I originally had Colson Loveland here if Hampton would go to the Broncos, but since they couldn't get their Michigan Wolverine Colson Loveland, they get their other Michigan Wolverine and Kenneth Grant.
That's a good fit.
I think they need the D-line help. Packers, another tough one for me. I wasn't sure where to go. Like I said earlier, I thought wide receiver could be a fit. I went James Pierce Jr. just because he fell all the way there, and it's hard for them to pass that up. 24, Vikings. This one I might have to look at back because it sounds like he's not getting as much first-round buzz, but Nick Amon-Wari from South Carolina. I saw it was either McShay or Schefter saying that Amon-Wari and Starks, one of them is going to go round 2, but not round 1, but not both of them. So something to consider there. 25.
I think it'll be Amon-Wari and not Starks. I don't think Starks will go round 1.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Interesting. So do you like Amon-Wari to the Vikings?
I think it makes a lot of sense in what's his name's defense. Yeah, I think.
And with Cam Bynum departing, kind of need to fill that and stuff.
Yeah. I'm not as high on him as like his athletic testing, but I understand it based on his athletic testing. So
then at 25, I have the other Ohio State, Josh Simmons at tackle. 26, Rams just run to the podium. Jahdae Barron's there. Hard for them not to take him. 27, Baltimore Ravens. That's where I have Gray Zabel going. He could play center. He could play guard, but they run the ball so much. They need the interior help. Lions just are super pumped. Tyleik Williams there for them at 28. They make that selection. And then I had Malachi Starks at Georgia. Thoughts on any of that stuff? Malachi Starks at Commanders.
I think first, I think if Jahdae Barron is there, I think you could argue him in Minnesota with what's his name's defense, Brian Flores. I think because of his versatility, that makes a lot of sense as well. Houston, I honestly think it's like Josh Simmons or Emeka Egbuka, like which Ohio State, you to go tackle. Yeah, potentially, but yeah, I just think Simmons, you're swinging for upside, and like he could have gone so much higher if he didn't get hurt. And then it's like, if you don't do Simmons and you just take Ibuka. So we'll see. I think Baltimore is a team potentially for Tyler Booker because they always draft those Alabama dudes. But then if they don't go Tyler Booker, I think pass rusher is a good fit for them.
Yeah. So for Baltimore, I went Zabel, but if I didn't go them, I was thinking Ezraku.
Yeah.
Him there.
Right. Yeah, they're good. They make a lot of sense for James Pierce. So we'll see.
Yeah. If he falls there, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, then the final three, Buffalo Bills. I was between Amos and Hairston.
Yeah.
Talking with you, I went Amos just from the size and fit for the team. Kansas City, Tyler Booker, Alabama, and then Eagles, Donovan Ezraku.
Yeah, it makes sense. I've seen a lot of people say Mason Taylor to the Eagles to replace, and then they trade Goddard, the tight end from LSU. He's a young tight end. You can get, long term. Like I said, I think Trayvon Henderson to Washington makes a lot of sense. I do think Buffalo, it's just which of those, what is it, like the third best cornerback is going to fall to them or whatever, third or fourth if you count Barron. So which of those third best corners goes to Buffalo? They can kind of just pick their poison.
They could go receiver. I saw Allen and Keon Coleman are having issues getting on the same page. So it's like, hey, do they go Luther Burden there maybe?
Right. Yeah, it could. And then, obviously, if Matthew Golden fell that far, I think you could start really saying, like I said with Herbert, Josh Allen's arm with Matthew Golden would make a lot of sense.
Hard to pass up Golden if he falls there.
Yeah, and then KC, you just wonder if they just, take one of the best defensive linemen available in this D-line class. But I think you wiped them all off the board. I think, even Tyleek was gone, Grant was gone.
I got one. I got one for you. Outside of Tyler Booker, what's his name? Tuia Moaloa from the DN from Ohio State, the big guy. He would be scary against opposite Karlaftis on that D-line.
I could see them just, like I said, taking the best defensive lineman, just saying, this is the strength of this draft. One of these guys is probably better than, their draft stock because of how they're going off the board. So, yeah, I think I could see the Chiefs just saying that's our best bet. I mean, the same with the Eagles. Like you said with the Eagles, I said Mason Taylor, but I mean, I could easily see that as well. And I could see one of those safeties going to the Eagles, but I just know they don't value safeties and linebackers. They just like to get, 6th and 7th round picks and cheap linebackers like Zach Bond and turn him into a great linebacker. So that's what the Eagles do.
CJ Gardner-Johnson and turn him into a safety.
Yeah, they just like recycle people's trash on the cheap. They don't draft guys 32nd overall at safety, although it would be a nice fit. But yeah.
Yeah, well, that was my mock draft. I mean, chances are half the picks happen or none of the picks happen. Like, it's going to get blown up. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, we talked about it, but at least we did a bunch of possibilities more than just like a few of the.
Yeah, and we'll be live during at least the first half of the draft and stuff, chatting through it. So that'll be fun. But yeah, this was a good dry run pilot episode. Get used to everything.
Sure. Good
chatting with you. Anything else that you want to add on before we?
No, I'm excited for Thursday. Yeah, we'll be here just a few minutes before the draft kicks off, and we'll be reacting to every pick, speculating on the next pick, all that stuff. So tune in.
Yeah, definitely. So for those who join us, if anyone join us, on to the next one. We'll see you later.
All right. Bye.